response. All right. I'm Amy, and I go to school with Victoria at Corbell and at DU. I'm studying international studies, and I'm focusing on human rights and migration mainly. But I've studied a lot in Latin America and a lot about Latin America, so that's my primary focus, I would say. And yeah, I'm just here to talk to you a little bit about health and the environment in Chiapas and how all of that's being affected by the mining. And I apologize for my, yeah.
Can you slow down?
Sure.
Yeah,
no problem. Yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to startle you.
this is Amy.
I'll slow down. No, just thanks for checking me. So yeah, just to give you a little, and I apologize, the TV wasn't working when I tried to hook it up to my computer, and my presentation wasn't saving to a disk, so, you know, the best laid plans. But here, I just wanted to share some photos with you from the trip, and in regards to the natural beauty that Victoria had mentioned, you know, just to highlight some of that. I'm going to walk around a little bit so you can see it. But this was on one of our trips to the coast, so that we could visit the cooperative that was, you know, fighting the energy companies, and then, yeah, just really beautiful pictures. So it gives you a sense of like how diverse the landscape is. And everyone is open as well as maybe it allows. But you know, it's a really ecologically diverse area in Chiapas, given that we were in the highlands for most of the time in San Cristobal, and that was a little bit colder, and then we go down to the coast and it was hot, and we were in bathing suits, so it was quite a jump. But it gives you a little bit of a sense of the diversity and also just how beautiful it is, right? It's like living here, you know, in the sense that you're surrounded by mountains. It's lovely. And we also went on an excursion to mangroves, as Victoria mentioned. Is anyone like a mangrove expert? Is anyone a botanist? Oh, awesome.
I just am a tree hugger.
Okay. Well, what can you tell us about mangroves?
Mangroves in India that are being affected badly by climate change, and I did a whole thing in my school that I was studying on global warming and how the mangroves, say the word, mangroves are so integral to the ecosystem and clean up things and keep things from eroding, and they're very important on the coastline of India.
Awesome. Yeah, exactly. That's amazing. I wasn't sure if anyone would be a botanist, or I was like, maybe someone will know. That's awesome. Yeah, exactly. Anyone else have any like thoughts on mangroves? I know you spend a lot of time thinking about them probably during the day. No? Okay. Well, yeah, as she mentioned, you know, they're biologically complex ecosystems. They house birds in the canopies. Am I talking too fast? No. Okay. They have shellfish attached to their roots. They have these complex root systems that are all intertwined. There are snakes, crocodiles. They can be ideal nurseries for fish. There are monkeys, deer, crabs. A lot of like life forms get their life from mangroves. They're described by National Geographic as the forests of the tide, and people in Mexico, while we were down there in Chiapas, described them as the lungs of Mexico. And we visited one of the largest reserves there, La Biosfera de la Encrucijada, the biosphere of the crossroads. And they're also natural barriers to tsunamis. So they have a lot of, they're pretty amazing, right? They like house a lot of things, they're interconnected. And they're also a source of livelihood for a lot of fishermen down there while we were there. But what we notice now is that they're being affected by a lot of environmental degradation. So let me just walk around again with some of these pictures of the root systems. They're pretty cool. They are coastal mangroves. And yeah, so we're seeing some of this environmental degradation that we talked about while we were down there. We went on a boat ride through the mangroves. While we were there, we were instructed not to touch the water, like when we got in. No one could bathe in the water. It was impotable. So we couldn't even touch it. And what had happened was someone very smartly put like a mine at the top of the hill, and then of course when you wash all the titanium and clean it, all of that falls into the water source. So that's why the river was contaminated. Fishermen in the area were saying that about 2 years ago they woke up and like hundreds of fish had risen to the surface and they were dead. And then they were also, there were reports of people fishing from that space and getting like fish that were, without fins or without like tails.
Mutated.
Yeah, exactly. Mutilated or mutated. And so, yeah, it was alarming, right, to say the least. And as I mentioned, so this area is a reserve. So I don't know, what do you all think of when you hear the word reserve?
Protected.
Protected, yeah. Like if I made a reservation at a restaurant and then the government took my reservation and gave it to somebody else and then like contaminated my table when I went to go get it, you know, I would be pretty upset. And this reserve has faced 10 years of exploitation from different companies and different forms of concessions. As Victoria mentioned, there have been 99 concessions of land in Chiapas for different reasons, and 21 of them have been attributed to just mining. So,
what's that word you use? Concessions?
concessions.
What does that mean?
So the government can say, yeah, like we'll give you this land. Essentially, they can just grant land for different like mega projects or mining purposes or like hydroelectric plants. And so yeah, this has been going on for 10 years. But you know, when the mines first came about 14 years ago, the community said like, great, yeah, we want you to come, because they made all these promises of like, we're gonna build schools, we're gonna build roads, you're gonna be awesome, there's so many jobs, you're gonna be great, money everywhere. And so people, you know, obviously welcomed them at first, and then as time went on, they began to see that all this degradation was, environmental degradation was happening, contamination of the water, health problems for people living there. And the government and the mining companies have consistently said in all the rhetoric that mining is sustainable. That's like their go-to phrase. Mining is sustainable, you know? You can almost hear like Sean Spicer saying that, right? Like, mining's sustainable, it's fine. Like, no, what are you talking about? It's period, it's fine. But it's clearly not fine. And if this sounds a little fishy to you, like that the government has given concessions in this reserved area, we learned there, and I'm not sure, I don't remember exactly what the relationship was, but the secretary in charge of giving out the concessions also had been working for the mine company or had been affiliated in some way for an amount of time. So that, again, makes sense.
Intergovernmental corporate corruption.
Yeah, totally. And so also I want to talk a little bit about the health concerns in this region. We visited a couple kind of camps that were protesting the mines. And one of those people had been fortunate enough to get a hold of the civil registry of the cancer rates in that area and of the deaths that had happened. So they studied it for 10 years, the doctors, they looked at the civil registries from 2005 to 2015. In 2005, they only had 5 cancer-related deaths, and that only was accounted for, it was like 7.5%, like cancer was 7.5% of all the deaths that happened that year or whatever. By 2015, there were 18 cancer-related deaths, and that was 22.5% of all the deaths that had happened in 2015. And the data that they had collected from 2016, from January to October, were 15 deaths again. And again, as Victoria mentioned, like the ages weren't, you know, people who normally die. They were young people. I don't know how to say that more tactfully, but yeah, they were people that it was alarming that younger people were experiencing this type of cancer, and liver cancer topped the list in this regard. And the doctor that was in charge of looking at these figures explained that the pathology was that people who experienced liver cancer were often exposed to amounts of cyanide, thorium dioxide, I don't know if anyone knows what that is, but it sounds dangerous. Titanium, once extracted, you know, it emits gamma rays that are very harmful to the environment and to people's health as well. So, you know, not only is the environment being attacked, but also the health of the persons being attacked. And then also, I think, a holistic health of the community, like a social health. We had multiple accounts of people claiming that once the mines had come in, there was a severe amount of delinquency that would also come in. Like narco trafficking would come in at that point. Corruption. So, you know, the common myth was that, you know, if mines are coming in, we'll give you jobs. You know, that's great, but the corruption was so high that people were saying that, you know, if you had money to bribe people to get a job, you could get a job, but it still left the most disadvantaged. And then you have, you know, if you connect the dots of the mining and, you know, all the fish are dying, and if that was your livelihood for decades or your family's livelihood forever, and you suddenly don't have that livelihood, it's going to push you into the informal economy, which is more dangerous. So maybe you would, choose to go into narco trafficking or human smuggling just to make a living. So that, that helps, that affects the community health. That's like a holistic perspective. At the societal level, it increases inequality and it pushes people into these informal spaces. So I guess just to kind of conclude a bit, I guess what does justice look like? We have these like small movements in Chiapas that are fighting the mines, that are blocking the road so that the mines hopefully won't be built. That's like a hope of theirs. But I do think that we can, oh, sorry, I wanted to show you one more thing before I go into this. So this is a map from one of the organizations down there, and this dark green area is where all the mangroves are. So it's a pretty long stretch of that coastline. This dark green area. Sorry, it's a little bit small.
So is all the mining open pit in that country?
It's not. It's not all open pit. I think it's both. I think it's a mixture.
So remember the one country with 60 guys were underneath, and the country ended up improving the regulations for the underground mining. So is that an
Was it
issue?
Chile?
Chile.
I think it was Chile.
Yeah.
That's Chile.
I mean, I haven't heard any accounts of the government trying to improve conditions. I can't speak to that. Everything that we heard was pretty bleak.
Well, is your group trying to hope for improving the conditions?
I mean, yeah, I would hope for that. I'm not sure what my capacity to do that is, but yeah, I absolutely, I think that
Well, I don't know if they're as bad as in this other country.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is like a global problem on a global scale, but I think, so yeah, just in conclusion, I think that we can learn some lessons from the mangroves, that they're all tied together, and that their ecosystem is very complex. And, as Jim was saying a bit, like, we're all connected, and we're obviously connected on a human level to the people living in Chiapas, but also, like, we might have walls between, like, nation states, and we might, identify differently, like, by race or, by gender, by sexual orientation, whatever it is. We have all these barriers, but I don't think that there are any, like, walls in the ocean, like, disconnecting our water sources from those water sources. So it's unrealistic to think that this wouldn't eventually catch up to us. And as Jim and Victoria mentioned, titanium is used in so many things. And so I think it comes down to, like, not only our consumption, but just an awareness of how that affects people and how we're tied to these things, like both as by residents of the planet, but then also just as human beings too. So yeah, are there any questions?
Tap into the royalties from these things. I mean, when they go